Over the past few days of POBing and messing around with this build, throwing in different kinds of content, I've finally got it in a place where I want to share it. It's got an overall pretty well-rounded feel in that it's tanky enough to do what I want, but also retains a really, really high amount of damage, and overall makes it really, really comfortable to play without hitting too many buttons. It's basically a 2-button build, as in the only 2 buttons you can press. It's really just a 1-buttoner if you're looking for maximum DPS, which is just Kinetic Bolt of Fragmentation. I will leave the footage to like full Uber Shaper, full Uber Maven, Wave 29, and 30 Sim in the description below if you want to take a look at those. As to be honest, I just kind of want to get right into the POB and talk about the build and why I kind of made the choices that I did, as I think this is actually a pretty flexible setup and like how you want to do stuff, but this is what I found, at least from testing, to feel the best. So I'm going to jump right into it. So jumping into the POB, you can see that we are a Deadeye. We start out on the right side of the tree and we work our way all the way up to the north side here. And the idea is behind this is that although we really want to take use of our ascendancy here, which is the different projectile bonuses, etc., we really actually want a lot of our nodes up here. Just because of the fact that we really, really want wand nodes as we are using wands. We want int as we are int stacking, and this also allows us to use this great cluster jewel here, which gives us split personalities for flat int and flat energy shield. And because these are scaled by how far away you are from the starting location, it makes it really, really efficient because you go all the way around here and basically back to the beginning. You could put a cluster jewel here, but again, the problem is you just get less effectiveness of these split personalities, right? So it saves you points on the tree, but I think it's pretty important to have these at maximum efficiency if possible. So in terms of how this really all scales up to be, it's really not too complicated. There's really only a couple of niche things I really want to talk about. And these are especially these 2 clusters right here of how they combo. This first one is giving us 60% stun avoidance. And this one here is allowing us to get our final amount of stun avoidance and cap our resistances and give us less damage taken. That is because of the fact we are running a Forbidden Flesh and Flame for Nature's Adrenaline. So we're kind of part Pathfinder here. And along with a belt that gives us some increased flask effect duration, we are able to run the triple elemental flasks, giving us quite a bit of bonuses, less damage taken, and giving us stun immunity, which is fantastic, really, really nice. This build is not ailment immune. It can become ailment immune if you swap out boots, the Ralakesh boots here, make those like ailment avoidance boots, and then you run this over here and you get the avoid ailments while holding a shield, and then finally swap out a jewel for the Ancestral Vision, I believe it's called, and that should give you the percent of spell damage suppressed, like gives you the ailment avoidance and such. It's something like that. But for this setup, though, I was totally fine not being ailment immune, even for Simulacrums and such, although it would be really, really nice. For the 2 clusters, we use a 12 passive, which I'm 97, so like if possible to get to 100, this would be really nice to fill out. And then we also use this other one, which is just a generic damage cluster. Like I wanted some explode, some additional damage here, but you can use whatever you want. That's pretty flexible. In terms of how I get this big damage, though, the 180 million, basically this is scaled through a couple of things. One is Mark Effect, which we get a ton of on the Deadeye. 75% increased effect is just absurd because it gives us so many splitting projectiles. We get 11 splits, which is massive. 7 projectiles total with 11 splits. So we can get up to a maximum of 77 projectiles, basically. It's something around there because essentially you have the initial ones coming in, and then if it splits to 77, then like I guess you get what, like 84 total, because you're like adding the 2 together, your 7 initial, and then the 77 that can split and come out and in or whatever, but whatever. Point is, it deals enough damage. This is why as well in my config, which I'll go over briefly, like I have like my Gale Force set, my Guardian Pinnacle, occurred recently, sure. Not much shock effect, because you're hit a lot, not hard. Exposed to lightning, intimidate from gloves, enemy on consecrated ground, which is just for bottled faith if you're bursting bosses, right? Otherwise, you wouldn't have that, but we'll talk about that in a second. But the big key here is I have this on 40 projectile travel distance. If I change this around, if I'm like point blank, we actually lose a ton of damage, but also if I say that we're super far away, we gain a ton of damage. I think it's somewhere around here, and this is because of far shot. The idea is behind this is that if you kind of look in the footage, I'll kind of play some footage back in, is that you start inside, which would be considered like a 0 of less damage, but then they can arc back out and then return. So it's kind of like a bit of a mixture of like your less damage and your more damage, because it doesn't count the projectile distance from where the thing spawns. It counts it from where it began, so which is from your wand originally. It won't count the splitting as like a new set of projectiles. Basically, it inherits the same distance, which is really nice. So I'm just putting something like that in anyway. It's enough. So even if it was something like 0, it's still plenty for everything I need to do. Just wanted to keep that in mind and not fluff it up to 70, just because we're not standing that far away, right? So going in here, I do a times 77, just because, again, that's roughly what this splitting is, and the projectiles, which is really nice. We're stun immune. We have our flasks up, which is great all the time. And otherwise, we're just stacking int. We do get things like Ghost Dance for just some extra recovery, as well as Suppression Cap through this wheel and this wheel here. And finally, hard carried by charms here. These were expensive charms to pick up because they were basically like, especially this one, this was perfectly rolled, because you really want Mark Effect. That's going to give you additional splits, as well as the suppression to be able to cap yourself at 100%, just because I wanted to Uber Boss. Otherwise, you don't really have to worry about it as much. I just want the consistency, as well as getting a Culling Strike charm, Strength, Intelligence. That was all super duper awesome. Otherwise, that's about it for the tree and such. We do get Dance with Death. That does give us the biggest amount of damage possible in terms of a timeless jewel. You can take that out and go for an actual intelligence helmet. The problem is that although you gain a lot of intelligence, I just don't think it's worth all the damage fall off, because we can't use things like volatility as well in our main links, just because of the fact that this is stretching our damage towards the high end, as in a low min roll and a high max roll, and Dance with Death is going to help us hit those high max rolls much more often, because our damage is lucky, so it rolls twice in the damage table. And that's how we essentially get a lot of damage. Again, taking this out is such a huge damage loss, right? Which is absolutely super important to have. So this overall is the Uber Bossing setup for the most part, right? But I actually changed it around a little bit for Simulacrums, because the problem is if you run this in Sims, is actually you don't have enough resistances. What you need to do is swap in an Oriath's End or a Bismuth Flask. To be honest with you, I didn't really notice the explosions as much, as I already had a little bit of explosions, and KB does a pretty good job on its own. And swapping over to KB here, the big key is swapping this out, this fire additional projectile, for increases and reductions to spell damage, also applied to attacks when wielding a wand. Massive damage increase. And keep in mind that even though we only have 450,000, or so it says here, because of how KB operates, and because of our links, where we're using like Awakened Fork, Awakened Greater, or multiple projectiles, geez, that's a mouthful, we are able to basically spread our damage and have so much coverage that we have so many projectiles on screen, and they're all going to be exploding additional times as well, due to the new KB quality of just giving us +1 explosion, is that you get so many overlaps that all the mobs just die. It's as simple as that. The damage is much higher than 450,000 as shown in the Simulacrum clip. So just something to keep in mind there. But that's what POB says. Otherwise, though, the links are quite simple. It's just really get as much damage as possible. We don't have anything special on Kinetic Bolt of Fragmentation. It's just more damage multipliers, crit damage, inspiration, etc., just so we can keep casting. Helps fix some mana. We really want to get our Grace, Wrath, and Discipline set up here. This is going to give us maximum amount of defense and offense combined. It's just our best auras. And finally, an Immortal Call with cast when damage taken. And that is going to give us just a little bit of defense. It's going to trigger pretty often during content, and allows you to tank a decent amount of stuff, which is nice. The final thing I wanted to go over with the skills is just the gem setup for when you're mapping and doing sims. You want to take out Kinetic Bolt of Fragmentation here and actually replace this with Kinetic Blast. So that way you have your Kinetic Blast in your 6th link here. And then basically the Inspiration and Full Life change places with the Awakened Fork and Greater Multiple Projectiles. This is why I have a 2 white socket chest piece here, and then also a 3 white socket Ralakesh, so that way I can swap things back and forth and be totally fine. That's going to offer the best amount of Simulacrum comfort, if you will, just because of the fact that you're going to need that clear and KB on its own. The Kinetic Bolt, sorry, there's 2 KBs, a little bit confusing. The Kinetic Bolt is allowing to deal plenty of single target, even on hard waves where there's like less curse effect, things like that. And then Blast just carries the rest of the clear, which is really nice. Otherwise, though, I'm just going to go ahead and go over the gear, which the gear is first off an in-stacking wand. So this is allowing you to get lightning damage to your attacks per 10 intelligence, along with spell damage per intelligence, which is fantastic. This spell damage per intelligence needs to be converted by this mastery here for Kinetic Blast, but for Kinetic Bolt, it is built into the skill gem itself, as you can see on Fragmentation. You get 250% increase on the spell damage, which is really, really nice because it comes back to attack damage, which is huge. So awesome mod there. Get some pen as well if you can on the prefix. That's done through an ashling, but it's not a mandatory thing. I just really wanted to put a lot into the wand, and then I ended up multi-commoding it, just doing attack speed, crit chance. Totally did the job for me. Weapon 2. So in terms of a secondary weapon, you technically could do wield wands if you wanted like a lot of damage. But overall, I found that being curse immune was really nice. Went for an Azirius Reflection. You get a lot of int, you get energy shield, all res. It's just a really nice all-rounder shield. You probably could go for something like a Malachai's Loop if you wanted like more power charges, because you do have Relicash and Patience, so you'll just always have those power charges, but I think this is just the most quality of life thing. My chest piece is good, but definitely could be better. We don't need the lightning res here on this, as we could obviously just swap some cold, because at that point if we took this off, we'd have a lot more cold. I could swap like a small like cold or something like that over the lightning, try to balance it better. But overall, I'm pretty happy with the chest piece. What you would really want on this is an int roll, a percent int roll, great prefixes with energy shield, and then an open craft on the suffix for percent attributes. That would help a lot. But again, it's good enough for me. For gloves, these are, in my opinion, fulfill two different purposes depending on what you want to do. One is using multi-link gloves if you want to not do the gem swap like I do. So you could just keep like your Kinetic Blast in there, your Kinetic Bolt, whatever you want to do there, in there all the time. So having things like base crit or faster projectiles, things like that, that's totally cool to do. I opt for these gloves just because, one, honestly price, because the other versions are really expensive. Not that these are cheap, but I paid, best I could do, right? But what's nice too is that these do allow for easy pierce, which is really nice, just general pierce. And from my testing, at least, it seems good to have at least just one pierce in the build. And this goes for your Kinetic Bolt of Fragmentation as well. Just to keep things a little bit smooth, I would have one pierce, which you can get on a prefix or the implicit. I think the implicit's the way to go because I need as much energy shield as possible. And that's why I opt for the energy shield craft. Take Intimidate for 4 seconds on hit. That procs like instantly because you hit so many times. Otherwise, you just get some int, attack speed. Accuracy I find was useful here. If I take this off, I'm not actually accuracy capped. Granted, if you get more intelligence, that will help you accuracy cap just because of the fact that you get the wand mastery for intelligence is added to accuracy rating with wands. But I found that I needed that. Could definitely be fixed though, for sure. Even just some more dexterity would probably help with that. This amulet is overall pretty good. Gives us a lot of global crit chance. Tranquility is a mandatory anoint for this setup with percent int, flat int. You'd want to get some attributes on this as well, but I just want to keep some resistances. Again, especially for Sims, it was just getting a little bit sketchy. I wanted some overcap. So otherwise, it's just a pure damage amulet with maximum energy shield crafted. Star of the show. Good old NTR, giving us all of the return from our projectiles, giving us an absurd amount of overlaps and returning in shenanigans. And yeah, it just gives a ton of damage. Its POB says 2.7%, but yeah, it gives slightly more than that, just slightly. For our second ring, we are using a Curse Enemies with Conductivity on hit. This is fantastic because of the fact that not only for damage, but this enables this mastery here for 40% reduced extra damage of that. You take 40% reduced extra damage from critical strikes by cursed enemies. There we go. English is going today. And that's going to allow you to get a lot more survivability. So that is fantastic to have. And finally, an increased intelligence belt, which is, again, the flask effect duration is the main role there, and some intelligence. Prefixes do the best you can. You could do like a Reforged defense or something, but yeah, that is about it. The only other thing to talk about is this 1C Fertile Mind, which is just a great damage boost in that position there, just converting our dex to intelligence. And finally, our Watcher's Eye, just giving us energy shield on hit, which is huge. Get that number as high as possible for the maximum amount of recovery, and then 12% suppression, which helps us suppress cap, so very, very nice there. But that is the overall setup. Probably going to be re-rolling soon, though. As much as I've enjoyed this build, I do want to just start POBing another and see if I can look for something else fun with the new Transfigured Gems. I mean, there's a lot of setups now that are possible. And again, like, this isn't the only setup. There's going to be tons of other setups here. between the two of Deadeye and Trickster, again, I really enjoy Deadeye, but I think Trickster would probably be a lot more comfortable with like Overleech, right? But each to their own, right? It's really whatever you prefer. So hope you enjoyed. Again, this is probably like a second or third build. It's definitely pretty expensive, right? Like budget and stacking is just, I don't know how to put that together really. There's just so many core pieces that you need to really get it cooking with this kind of setup. But once you get it going though, it is absolutely fantastic, in my opinion, ton of fun to play. Additionally, as well, disclaimer, it does well for mapping, but if you were looking for like super high-end Delirium stuff, although this is really good at it, I think I would prefer that on a Trickster, just because of the fact that as much as you need damage, the survivability will help a little bit there. But I think for everything else, like for Uber Boss and all that stuff, I just say Deadeye, YOLO it, get as much damage, and just pop off. While still remaining a decent amount of tankiness. Like I enjoy being able to sit there while Shaper beams me. That is a nice thing. So yeah, that's about it. And yeah, back to the POB dungeon. Gotta make something new. Enjoy.